Hi guys, which is an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with the best bans for patch 2.6. Now there have been a lot of significant changes for this one. And I actually wanted to push it out earlier, but I had a lot of other videos to do, so I have pushed those out first. And upcoming from this video, we have a lot coming up, especially a lot of updated complete guides. Like updated complete guides for like Misfortune, Lucian, Zaya, and like so many others. I'm also gonna have like a Caitlyn complete guide coming up, a lot of stuff. So before we get into it, the game you're seeing in the background is a Morgana jungle gameplay. Morgana is actually a pretty good jungler, so you guys can enjoy the gameplay in the background while I talk about it. And the gameplay in the background is absolutely insane. But of course we are focusing more on what I'm talking about, which is the best bans, but just enjoy the gameplay in the background. So, just as a reminder, because you guys may not have watched my previous best bans video, but obviously, whatever you ban is up to you. And if you hate like a certain character, let's say some people just hate Yasuo and you never want to fight Yasuo, then just ban Yasuo. Just ban whichever character you hate fighting, or you know, just that you want to ban, because at the end of the day, it's just your choice. So this is all just my opinions on what are the best characters to ban, and most of them are based off of my tier list that I made. So I'm gonna link the tier list for patch 2.6 up in the cards above for you guys who want to check it out who have not done so yet. But yeah, so I have actually cheated a little bit again, because now we have 10 bans in total instead of 6. So I have thought of bringing the total bans I cover in this video from like 10 to 15 or to 20 even, but I realized that, you know, maybe that's not very necessary. I'm just gonna cover 10, but I'm gonna cheat a bit by lumping some picks together, so you guys will see what I'm talking about when we get to pick number 10 in fact, but we'll get into it real soon. So first up, before I get into pick number 10, or ban number 10 I should say, I'm gonna cover 3 champions that I didn't actually put on the list. It's sort of like honorary mentions, but it's more of like explaining why I don't actually think they're worth banning. So the first one is Brand. Now Brand has been at the top, near the top of my ban list for a long time, but honestly I don't think he's as strong as I thought he was initially. Now make no mistake, his damage is absolutely insane. However, he is just a glass cannon, and if he gets into a position where he can use his spells on all of the enemy team, it does happen pretty often, because as I said before, a lot of times in solo queue, people are uncoordinated, so a lot of times they group up and Brand can get like a 5-man W, 5-man ult, and you know, people just spread the ult all over the place. But the thing is, he's so squishy that he is so easy to kill. So I think his raw damage is just balanced out by the fact that he's so squishy and so easy to kill. So he's very easy to gank, and when he steps up to actually use his skills, it puts him in the danger zone because his range is not the highest, and it actually allows you to kill him as well. So I don't think Brand is considered a top tier pick, at least in comparison to the 10 picks I'm actually putting on the list, because of that reason. Now secondly is Veigar. So now Veigar has been very greatly overestimated, especially when he was initially released. He's a late game scaling champion who needs to stack much like Nasus. So really he takes really long to actually get online. In the early game he doesn't really do too much. Yes, his cage is useful, but he isn't really going to be doing that much damage. Anyway, he needs to take a long time to scale. So in this kind of fast paced meta we have in Wild Rift, honestly he only gets good in like the mid to late game, and really in the mid game he's just acceptable. He's not even good, so it really doesn't bode that well for him. So yeah. Now lastly is Morgana herself. So now Morgana is a flex pick between mid, jungle, and support, but really her best role is support, and followed by jungle, and then followed by mid. But honestly, I think Morgana is a reasonable champion. I don't think she's like broken in any way. I think she's good, but I don't think she's broken. She's definitely not bad either. I just think she's an alright pick, but just because she's a new pick, I don't think it warrants a ban, because I've learned that lesson a lot of times, like with Brand and Veigar and Jace, that just because they're a new pick doesn't necessarily mean they're broken. We have had a lot of picks that on release were actually really broken, of course, but that's not necessarily the case, especially nowadays. So I'm not gonna make the mistake of just throwing Morgana straight onto the list. So without further ado, we can get into the 10 bans proper. So now the first, at ban number 10, we actually have one of those that I kind of lumped 2 people together. We have 2 top laners, which are Camille and Fiora. So these two top laners are basically just very good 1v1, very good split pushing potential, especially on Fiora. Fiora is the best 1v1 Baron laner, best split pusher. With Camille, she's also very good 1v1, and she's also very good at split pushing, but she is even more versatile than Fiora because she can actually join teamfights and can actually have a big impact on teamfights with her backline dive and lockdown potential. So really, especially if you're a Baron laner and you can't play either of these two champions, really there is no good reason to give over these champions to the enemy team. So why not just ban these champions and just not let the enemy team have them, basically. So at spot number 9, actually we have Lulu, who is the only support that we are going to actually find on the entire list. Now, there's a very good reason for this, because Lulu actually makes so many champions simply broken. Like it's not just Vayne and Jinx who does kind of benefit a lot from Lulu, especially Jinx. Jinx almost kind of needs Lulu to actually even function in this current meta. Vayne with Lulu makes her so much better. Even not AD carries, like maybe even like Riven, Olaf does super duper well just having a Lulu on the team to just buff them up. Like the shields, heals, speed ups, attack speed increases, knockups that Lulu provides is just too insane. Like she just makes too many champions just simply way too good. Basically any Bruiser, Juggernaut, and like Vayne and like Jinx just becomes so much better with Lulu around. So why not just ban Lulu, you know? I think Lulu is a great ban, so Lulu finds herself at spot number 9. Now spot number 8 is another one where I've lumped a lot of champions together. And it's really the mid lane assassin role. So the cover of these champions is going to be Zed. I think Zed is the main one I'm going to be talking about, because Zed is really good in the current meta, but kind of lumped in the same spot as him is Katarina and Akali, the two of them are not really broken anymore, but for people who can play Katarina and Akali well, you definitely will feel it, and they will feel broken, but just that they really aren't. But who is probably really broken now is Zed. So Zed still does insane damage. He barely has gotten any meaningful nerfs. He just did get nerfed like 5 damage on his shurikens, which really doesn't really matter all that much. His only meaningful nerf that he ever caught was the one reducing the width on his shuriken, which till today still affects him quite a bit, but it's sort of balanced out by the fact that he got Serelda's Grudge as an item. So he also technically got buffed because he got Edge of Night in this patch. So what Zeds normally go for nowadays is like maybe a Dust Blade into Serelda's into Edge of Night. So this gives them damage followed by slows, which allows them to hit all of their shurikens after they ult you, and then followed by safety with Edge of Night. So really Zed has everything just in his first 3 items: damage, utility, and safety. So Zed is really, really good at the moment. Now the only thing holding him down, and why he's not any much higher on the list, is just simply because he's single target. So he's really good early to mid game to get assassinations, but when you get into the real late game, Zed can really only assassinate one person, and after that he's basically kind of useless. He doesn't really bring a lot to the team aside from assassinating one person, which of course if you get like a key person like their jungler or AD carry, it's still going to be a game changer, but he becomes less and less useful the longer the game goes on. Alright, so now on spot number 7, we actually have Riven. So Riven is very strong in both the jungle and the Baron lane, and as long as you're good at Riven, like being animation cancels, etc., Riven is really good. And I feel like after she got her nerf on her Q by 5 damage, which is negligible, and a 1 second on her E, which is also negligible, people have been underrating her a lot, and she's gotten picked a lot less in both positions. But I still think she's very good, and she's definitely worth banning, because Riven have very few bad matchups. Like even in the Baron lane where you fight against like Fiora and as well as Camille, like even those matchups really aren't that bad for Riven, and they're actually winnable. And almost every other matchup, like if you match into like a Malphite or something, that's like a winning matchup. Majority of top lane matchups for Riven are going to be winning matchups, except like Renekton. But Riven basically wins majority of matchups in the Baron lane. She's really good in the Baron lane, and if you get her in the jungle as well, if you're good at Riven, she's just going to be good in the jungle as well, because she can just be flexed to the jungle. So She's really she does a lot of damage. She's really tanky and hard to kill at the same time. So really, she just needs to get banned. It's just simple as that. So now number 6, we have yet another quote-unquote new champion, which is Dr. Mundo. He just got his rework. However, this is a ban number 6 with an asterisk, because really it depends on what kind of team comp that you're having, whether it's worth to ban Mundo or not. Because really, Mundo is only good into teams that cannot deal with him. So obviously, if you have a Vayne on your team, banning Mundo is not even going to be a good idea, just simply because Vayne can deal with the Mundo easily. So really, you should only ban Mundo if you have a team that simply cannot handle Mundo. And really, Mundo gets countered by like one item, which is like Oblivion Orb or Executioner's Calling. Just as long as you have Grievous Wounds on your team, he is pretty easily countered. But if he gets a hit in the early game and he gets really tanky, he can be very, very difficult to kill. And some teams simply just cannot handle a Dr. Mundo, even with Grievous Wounds. So, for example, if you have like a Malphite in the top lane who is a tank, definitely he's not going to be killing the Mundo. You have a like assassin in the mid lane, let's say a Katarina, she's not going to be killing Mundo. And you have like just a standard ADC, maybe like a Jinx, she's going to have a hard time killing the Mundo. Then you have just a support and like let's say another a jungler who's let's say like a Xin Zhao or something. Like no one can really kill the Mundo. That's the issue. But yeah, so really he's only worth banning if your team just cannot deal with him. But in general, he's quite strong at the moment in both like the jungle role as well as the top lane role. Actually, I will be having a Mundo complete guide coming up real soon. Didn't mention that at the start of the video, but I will be making a Dr. Mundo complete guide on the reworked Dr. Mundo. So you guys can look out for that. A lot of content coming up. Now, at number 5, we actually have Ziggs. Now, Ziggs just got a nerf, especially on his mana, in terms of both the cost of his Q, as well as his base mana itself. But honestly, the mana changes did make a difference. He can Q like maybe 1 or 2 less times in lane before he has to go back, and he does have to kind of build more mana. Like you normally go for the Sarah's Embrace, whereas previously Sarah's Embrace was sort of like a choice. Like some people preferred building like Ludens into Rabadons, but some people built like Seraph's Embrace into Ludens instead. So Seraph's Embrace was kind of like an option, but now it's sort of like the standard Ziggs build, which really isn't all that bad because it gives you safety 2 as well as unlimited, more or less unlimited mana in the later stages of the game. So I wouldn't even say it's a bad thing. But Ziggs, honestly, he was mainly nerfed in terms of his mana, and aside from that, he still does really, really well in terms of whatever else he did well normally. So in my opinion, Ziggs is still worth a ban. Like, I repeat this every single time, but he has very good scaling, very good late game damage, very good tower taking potential with his W and his passive as well. He has safety with his satchel charge, a semi-global ult which does a lot of damage, and can also steal objectives with his ultimate. So really, he has like way too many things going for him, and he should just be banned. So now number 4, actually a pretty surprising pick, which is actually going to be Renekton. So Renekton, as we all know, is pretty much the best Baron laner at the current stage of the game. So really, Renekton, the thing that makes him really good is that he doesn't really have any bad matchups. He has a good matchup into Riven, and against Fiora and Camille, the matchups are not incredibly bad. Like with Fiora, you just have to play around her riposte and don't stun her when she's in her riposte state, obviously. So you just gotta play around her riposte. So really, Renekton versus Fiora is kind of like a skill matchup on whether Fiora can riposte Renekton's point and click stun or not. And against Camille, Renekton does well, or okay as well. So really, Renekton doesn't really have any bad matchups in the Baron lane. So he's a very good, safe Baron lane pick, which is what makes him really, really good. And aside from that, he does a lot of damage, and he's very tanky as well. So he's just a very good pick in general, that if you're not planning to pick him, pretty much just ban him. Although there is an argument where banning Fiora and Camille is better than banning Renekton, just because like Renekton, while he doesn't have a lot of bad matchups, he doesn't really have a ton of like incredibly good matchups as well, whereas Fiora and Camille do have some matchups that they just win by default. So it is also a consideration there. But I think that Renekton, just because of the fact that he's just so flexible in the Baron lane in terms of just having so many like okay matchups, that he should just be banned, like, period. which is why I put him way higher on the list. Now, position number 3, ban number 3, is what I call the jungle assassin role. We have Rengar and Kha'Zix. Now, if I had to choose between the two which one I want to ban, I would choose Rengar, because Rengar can just one-shot people within like a half a second. He can just instantly one-shot people instantly, whereas Kha'Zix, even when he's sped, he still needs to get like a Q off, like 2 Qs off to kill you even when he's sped. And yeah, so he can sometimes like just Q, alt Q and you die, but he takes more time to kill you, so he's less bursty than Rengar, so therefore there's a little bit more counterplay. Like if he Qs you and like 2/3 of your health is gone, you can instantly Zhonya's, you can instantly flash away or something. But Rengar, if he jumps out of the bush or he ults and he just jumps at you, he deletes you in half a second, and normally there is almost no time to react. So just for that very reason, I just think Rengar is a better ban than Kha'Zix, and Rengar has been growing in popularity a lot. In this period of the season, I've been seeing a lot of Rengars appearing in ranked, so Rengar is probably the better ban than Kha'Zix. But you know, some people still don't like Kha'Zix, and in my opinion, Kha'Zix is a better pick than Rengar. But just that Rengar is just a more one-shot kind of assassin, which I hate to go up against, especially as an ADC main. So yeah, I think Rengar is the ban here. So on ban number 2, it's actually something that we don't... honestly, I think the top 2 bans aren't really very surprising. So ban number 2, we actually have Lee Sin. So now, you guys know all along that I always think Lee Sin is the best jungler, period. Like, he has been the best jungler for months and months and months on end. He did get a nerf, like, in patch 2.5a. But that nerf was pretty minor. It's just affecting his burst on his W, second phase of the W. But honestly, that nerf really doesn't affect him all that much. And people who are good at Lee Sin will still destroy you with Lee Sin in the early game regardless of that nerf. And really, Lee Sin is just the best jungler at the moment. And he can exert so much pressure on really any lane that I think Lee Sin is one of the best bans in the game. Like, as an ADC main, I normally don't ban ADCs or supports. I normally ban my Lee Sin or my ban number 1, which we'll get into later. And if the ban number 1 and 2 is already covered, I'll move on to ban number 3, which is Rengar. And if Rengar is even covered, then I'll just ban Kha'Zix. So really, my top 4 bans are kind of like Kayle, Lee Sin, Rengar, and Kha'Zix. And I've accidentally leaked my number 1 pick, which is going to be Kayle, which really isn't really going to be a surprise to anybody. So yeah, now that we've covered Lee Sin, we're going to move on to Kayle, which is my number 1 ban. Now, Kayle is the number 1 ban with a big asterisk as well, because Kayle honestly kind of has the Vigar problem. But the real issue is that Kayle is like the weakest champion in the early game. Like, honestly, pre-level 5, she's just a glorified minion. Post-level 5, she becomes like a cannon minion with a little bit more damage. And she really needs level 10 and 2 items. Like, normally it's Hextech Gunblade and Nashor's Tooth to actually be useful. But the moment she hits level 10 with 2 items, she becomes useful. The moment she hits like level 15, she becomes so insane. So basically, she is a very weak champion in the early game, nearly equivalent to a minion. And in late game, she's the hardest hyper carry you will ever see. And she's like way stronger than any ADC, but way squishier as well. So like she at level 15 and even at level 10 when you stack up, she does AoE auto attacks to like the entire team. So think of it like a Jinx, just with a little bit shorter range that can just AoE attack everything. And she just, when she gets to that point, she carries so hard. And people know how to play Kayle. Like, they're gonna play very safe and just hug tower the entire early game. And they're gonna give up farm, they're gonna hug tower. And really, you can't just simply dive them unless you have that much damage. Unless you're playing like Lee Sin or something like in lane. But really, no champion can really just dive like that easily. So really, the only way you shut down Kayle in the early game, if the Kayle is playing correctly, is to stack a wave, which you can do very easy because Kayle is not gonna contest your wave pushing, your wave stacking. And then your jungler has to come and dive with you to get a kill on Kayle. And this is pre-level 5 because even if you tower dive with a full wave with your jungler post level 5, I have tried it before and I was the jungler in this scenario and we got screwed over because Kayle hit level 5 mid dive and she ulted and we didn't manage to kill her successfully. So basically we got screwed over by her ult. So Kayle players can play Kayle really well. So I think Kayle for now at least is the definite best ban until she catches a nerf or until people start learning how to deal with her properly, which no one can really do at the moment because Kayle players just play too safe. It's just the simple fact of the matter. They just play too safe, and really you cannot do anything about it. So anyways, with that, with Kayle covered, we've actually reached the end of the top 10 bans of the video. And we also have almost reached the end of the gameplay. Spoiler alert, it's not really much a spoiler because you can actually see it happening right here. We're about to lose the game. So despite getting like a Herald Steel, Elder Dragon Steel, a Infernal Dragon Steel, we are still gonna lose not Infernal Dragon, I think Ocean Dragon Steel, we are still gonna lose the game. But anyways, this game was pretty insane. And yeah, so anyways, regardless, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.